Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our dialogue. In fact, this is actually the first one for this term. This is actually a two-part, workshop where we literally start on a Monday with a back to basic workshop where we deconstruct the theme or the topic, and then that is then followed by a dialogue where we then bring in lived experiences and science and data into the conversation. So before we start, I'm seeing very familiar faces. So maybe just using your emojis, can you use your emoji to show us if you were present on Monday on our Back to Basics workshop, so that we can see who's new. Akila, Siyabonga, Mugisha, I recognize you. Pedrapio, yes, you were there. Archiford, I recognize the name. Papama, awesome, yay, great. Yeah, a very big welcome again to our dialogue on climate change and human rights and using the EACOP as a case study. Very, very excited for today because on Monday, we really, started the dialogue and just by sharing, what this means for us, how do we feel about this project and how will it impact different communities. So before we start, we have three incredible guests for today who will be sharing with us, from the science perspective to the law and also from the grassroots, like looking at the children's rights. So I'm very excited to welcome Baraka Lenga, Kayinga Muda Isito, and Clay. Even though I haven't seen Clay's name on the chat, I hope he is with us. But a very, very big welcome to all three of you. And thank you again so much for honoring the investigation. We cannot wait to dive deep. But before I actually introduce our speakers, I just want to tell you a little bit of EACOP in case you were not present on our workshop on Monday. So in 2006, commercial quantities of oil were confirmed to exist in the Lake Albert Basin in Uganda. The oil companies in Uganda, Sinnock Ltd, Total Energies, and Towell PLC completed the exploration phase. And then in November 2020, Total Energies finalized the acquisition of Tellur's entire interest in Uganda's Lake Albert development project, including the East Africa crude oil pipeline in 2020. So the Total Energy is now a major shareholder in the project, and Sinnock are now headed into development phase, which will consequently lead to the production of Uganda's oil resources. I'm sure we've seen somewhere on the news or on social media, people talking about EACOP, and it is something that is of a big concern, hence we are having these dialogues today to really find out to really take it back to the basic and find out what is EACOP, what is the potential of it, also playing devil's advocate, but also looking at if it is being developed, how will it impact, our human rights? How will it impact our communities, looking at the land, looking at the villages, looking at children's rights. And so with that, I'm now going to present our speakers. So I'll start with Baraka, and I'll read Baraka's bio as an introduction. Welcome. Michelle, are you going to share the screen? Thank you, Michelle. Okay, yeah. So as I've said, we have our guest, Baraka Lenga. Baraka is from Tanzania. Oh. Okay. Sorry, I think Baraka started talking. I'm just gonna mute Baraka. Yeah, so Baraka Langa is a young climate activist, climate change scientist, livelihood expert, and a committed climate activist based in Tanzania. So he's currently working on a representative of Green Faith International Tanzania chapter. Baraka is also a striker with Fridays for Future Tanzania, which involve asking business leaders and politicians to act urgently against climate change. Baraka is currently running a campaign against East Africa crude oil pipeline, known as EACOP, and all fossil fuel investment all over the world. So I'm also going to read the other two bios, so that when we start talking, we then are not going back to the bios. So now I'm going to, introduce Kayinga Mundu Yisito. So Kayinga is a human rights defender addressing the needs of the vulnerable children and marginalized groups for healthy and self-reliance communities in Uganda. Kayinga is currently the network coordinator at the Community Transformation Foundation Network. Very big welcome to Kayinga. And then our last guest will be Clay. And Clay is a lawyer, environmentalist, and a natural resource enthusiast based in Tanzania. Clay is currently a project coordinator at Lawyers Environmental Action Team, known as LEAT, in Tanzania, as well as a member of Consultative Board of Friends of Earth Africa. So very thank you to Clay, Kayinga, and Baraka. So now we're gonna hand over to Baraka. So Baraka, you've been doing a lot of studies, on EACOP and campaigning, and you've been running campaigns. And so can you just share with us like some of your findings, from the scientific perspective? Because I'm sure like while you were running campaigns and doing all of this research, there were very insightful findings, maybe that might be helpful with us really understanding what is exactly is happening with this EACOP project. So over to you, Baraka.
Amazing, Sol, thank you. I'm not going to share my video because I'm just using my phone, and it is
good.
It is about to die. So I'm pretty sure if I be sharing my video, it will go off soon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So about EACOP, this is a crude oil. This is a crude oil pipeline that involves the transportation of. This is the East Africa crude oil pipeline that involves the transportation of crude oil from Hoima around Lake Albert in Uganda to the port of Tanzania, that is the region known as Tanga. The pipeline will cover about 1,445 kilometers along the way from Hoima, Uganda to Tanga, that is Tanzania. So from the scientific perspectives, as it has been stated by Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and the International Energy Agency, that in order to meet the goals set in the Paris Agreement to achieve the temperature that is 1.5 degrees Celsius, that is 2, or if we are able to, maybe we can maintain to 1.5, we need no new fossil fuel. This is due to the fact that fossil fuel leads to the emission of greenhouse gases, which affects climate system and ultimately cause extreme weather events and the climate crisis. And from scientific perspective, they say that this East Africa crude oil pipeline will be emitting 34 million tons of carbon dioxide every year. That is more than 2 times than what Uganda and Tanzania is emitting currently, because Tanzania emits 12 metric tons of carbon dioxide per year and Uganda emits just 5. So together, Tanzania and Uganda emits 17. So with this EACOP, Tanzania and Uganda is going to emit 34 million tons of carbon dioxide. And this is going to amplify climate crisis. As far as it concerns, most of our people in the community depends on activities which are climate sensitive for their survival. These are agriculture, tourism, fishing, to mention few. So, and with the ongoing climate crisis, we all know that our people are more vulnerable. Climate change is forcing our people to become poorer and less resilient. So if we are going to take this project on, so we must be assured that our people are going to become more vulnerable, more poorer, and less resilient, as far as their activities, which they depend for their survival, are climate sensitive. Also, this project is going to cause some social justice impacts and human rights impacts. For example, as far as the project is ongoing, our people have been displaced from their lands. That's the land that they used to grow crops for their survival. That's the land they used to stay. And from 2018, this is 2022. In Tanzania, these people have never been compensated. So you can imagine, they have never been compensated and they have stopped to continue using that land. So you can imagine how their life is, because the land in Africa is a crucial resource, because we depends on the activity that depends on land. So you can see. Also, you know, some people used to bury their loved ones there after they pass away, and EACOP team forced them to move those graves without considering their culture. So you can see EACOP is violating our tradition, our customs, our culture. So far as I've been on the ground, that is what I've seen. Maybe we'll be hearing other from my colleagues. Thank you, Xoli.
Thank you, Clay. I mean, you've really mentioned such key points, especially the one around culture, okay? Because it's something that often is not being highlighted. As you said, like that is ancestral land where people have been buried, and there are cultures and rituals, that are performed on that land. So then what happens then if that is being used, for this project? But also one thing you've also mentioned that I was interested in is around compensation. I mean, this project is actually being sold as unlocking East Africa's potential, and it's been sold as an economic upliftment. So where now we are seeing like families actually being, well, I don't know if this is true, and this is what I want to ask you, because on the news, we've seen that some of the families and people in those villages that the pipe will be cutting through are being compensated. So is that something that is happening, or is it just a greenwash thing, or that is just being painted on social media?
Oh, do I need to answer this question now?
Yeah, so it's around compensation, because you said that there was a natural disaster in Uganda and Tanzania where people were being displaced, and they still, even to this day, they're not being compensated for their loss and damage. And with EACOP, so EACOP has been sold as a unlocking Africa's potential. And on news and on social media, we've seen families actually being compensated for their land, and actually them saying that that money will aid them actually in living a better life. Like now they'll be able to buy land somewhere else. And someone even said that they would now look into starting a business, you know. So the question is that true for somebody that has been campaigning and doing research on the ground? Is that exactly what is happening, or is that just some greenwash, you know?
Oh, amazing, Soul. Thanks for a good question. As I've said before, that assessment for the case of Tanzania, because I'm from Tanzania and I'm not in position to say something about Uganda. In Tanzania, 95% of the people who are going to lost their land as a report, as a result of East Africa Crude Oil Pipeline have never been compensated. And the assessment for land valuation was done in 2019, and this is 2022. So you can see, if the compensation was done in 19 I mean, and this is 2022, they have never been compensated. And they are going to be compensated with the land value that was assessed in 2018. So can you imagine that their justice has been delayed? And we say that justice delayed is justice denied. So for the case of Tanzania, I'm pretty sure, and I'm responsible for this because I have been on the ground. I have met those persons affected by this project, and I have seen those documents from EACOP team. I'm pretty sure that those persons affected by this project have never been compensated, 95% of them. This is what I know for the case of Tanzania. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Baraka. Thank you for that clarification. And I want us to go back to science. Science is, I mean, it's a very critical in climate change because it gives us the facts, it gives us the stats, it gives us the data. But do you think these projects like EACOP or the government takes science seriously, especially from the Africans?
Okay, amazing. Paris Agreement is our roadmap in addressing climate change, and the Paris Agreement says that in 2030, we must maintain our global temperature to 1.5 degrees Celsius. And as far as 1.5 degrees Celsius is concerned, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and the International Energy Agency say that in order to meet that goal, we need no new fossil fuel from now. So you can see, if our governments, I mean Tanzania and Uganda, and these French companies, Total and that one from China, Sinopec, are keeping on investing this new fossil fuels project, this means that our governments and those companies are not serious about climate action. That's what I can say. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, definitely. I mean, this is not just what's happening in Tanzania and Uganda. I mean, we are seeing it all around the world. In fact,
Yeah.
like especially like in African countries, but also like I've always find it very fascinating, especially around the science, because even including the Paris Agreement. I mean, that is written from the global North perspective of what is happening there and the years that they have. But if you're looking at the global South, I mean, we are already experiencing the effects of climate change. Therefore, we don't have the 10 years, that is being said that, it's going to get worse. And so then it becomes very crucial that we really start to bring forward our own scientists, to change that narrative, to give us the data, that you guys research on the ground, so that then when we are fighting, EACOP, then we can present our own local science. But with that, I want to take it to you, Kayinga. So, because you advocate for children's rights. And so, in your own perspective, so when you're looking at EACOP and you're looking at children's rights, like, where do you see the infringement? Do you think this is like a good thing? Because I mean, as I said before, it's been said that it's going to bring a lot of jobs. It's going to change people's lives, and so from your own perspective, what do you think about this EACOP?
Thank you so much, Xoli, for the convening this engagement. Hi everyone, Kayinga. I'm called Kayinga Mudisto from Uganda. It is true, much of the things don't differ from my colleague in Tanzania, being that this is a cross-border project. But from what you have asked me, there are a lot of, you see, the problem with this mega project is about miscommunication or disguising by companies, and the government wants to get what we call social license, but just deceiving people. For the last 4 years, when they come to our community, I work in Greater Masaka sub-region, and I'm working in the 4 districts, which borders with Tanzania, where the pipeline is passing. And it's true, I've been advocating for the rights of the project-affected persons, only that my profile did not indicate that. And in fact, I'm among the 3 nominees for the 2022 European Union Human Rights Defenders Award, which is coming up on June 1st this year. So all those are just words. I can tell you that in the last 4 years, the project has only employed 1 person in our region. In the region, 1, but when they talk about jobs, they talk about thousands of jobs. They talk about tens of jobs. So those are just total lies. When all this work happens on the ground, the issues of those, like social, like local content, they don't exist. When you come back to what you have been talking about, the project is going to affect over close to 2,000 people in my region. On average of 5 people, we are going into more than 10,000 people being directly affected in the region. That is too much. But all these people over the 3 years, we were able to amplify our advocacy, where we said it has been a practice in Uganda. If a project delays to kickstart, people remain getting the same money they were valued to get. In Uganda, with our voices that even it took us to take the cases to court in East African Court of Justice, the case in France, through our partner organizations, Total and the government of Uganda were forced to have additional percentage of every year lasted. That is 15%. And it was very clear. It took 6 months to declare what they call cut-off date. So cut-off date was declared in 2019 in May. Today, we are talking about May 2022. These are 3 years. Some people have signed the contracts for the compensation, but the provision for the uplift is only talking about 2 years. Much as they are supposed to have 3 years. So if you see the impunity around it. These people, any gap they see that they can manipulate the population, they use it. And this is now our next target. We advocated for uplift, for compensating people for the period delayed every year 15%. Now you are compensating the people, you are cheating their 1 year uplift. And there are also other people whose property were not valued well. They have petitioned, they have raised their voices, but they have not been listened to. I give an example. There's a community in Chotera which contested the rates, which were totally different from other neighboring districts. They took the issues to the government value. But as of now, we were last got updates from Total that the chief government value accepted to give new rates. But now the contract that they are doing with the people on comparison, they are using the old rates of 2018 and the lower valuation that they used. So now you see all these, even before talking about what will be the impact of the project, but even before the project kickstarts, whatever we are mentioning now are already impacts. Imagine if this has happened before the project takes forth. What do we expect when the project has come, when the route is guarded? Okay, talk about intimidation that we are facing because we are taken to be anti-EACOP project. Yet for us, we're saying the violations of human rights, the violations of environmental rights must be respected. If Uganda is seeking to COP agreement, Paris agreement, are you respecting it? Is the agreement, the Paris agreement talking is what we are seeing Uganda and Tanzania doing? So we're just trying to challenge them, not to just think twice. But we are harassed. My office in February and the home where intruders, they came in, they broke my house. You see, so we are working in fears because they want us to speak what they want to speak. They want us to deceive with them. If they're deceiving people jobs, they want me to also deceive people. Praise jobs are coming, but I'm not that, as the realist, as the self-made person, I don't reason like that. When we talk about, there are so many children who have failed to go back to school. School dropout has increased in the area, in the area where Pampa is coming, because 3 years on the road, people don't have any money. Where they were expecting to get money, the land was leased. And all these problems, when they're happening, we have not seen any response from the companies, from the government, even during COVID time. People were almost trying even to eat nothing, but there was no rescue. Why are we standing up? When problems arise in our communities, people come back to us for humanitarian aid. But why should we stand up for people in need when the needs are caused by others? So all this shows you that now, I would give an example about the jobs. They are promising about a service provision. Recently, a company from Dubai was announced to be the one catering company from Dubai. So one that won the tender for catering services. Now, these days, these people are moving in our region. Is telling people, please organize groups, please apply and be able to supply. How can you tell people to apply when the strings attached to the guidelines for applications, they cannot be met by the locals? And you were thinking that you were really helping people to participate into the project. Why do you tell people that their jobs, their tenders, when the tenders are already given, awarded to others? So this tendency of Africans, of Ugandans, of local communities, just to be beggars, just to be followers, they are being put into the dim light that they are beneficiaries. But when the beneficiaries are not known, they are invisible, and they are the ones that are causing us troubles. So I have to tell you that even now, before the pipeline project kicks up, because now if it kicks out, we're going to see destruction of forests, we're going to see destruction of natural resources, people's water sources, and there is no communication to the poor communities. What is the way forward? What will be the response? Okay, but everything is left, to the companies, to the technocrats, just to think for the people. There has not been any attempt for people to be able to understand if our water source is going to be depleted. What is the solution? What are we going to do? All this has not happened, which we call constructive engagement. What we see is information sessions, but not constructive engagements with the affected communities, because people would be able to articulate their issues and concerns. There are a lot of promises, even to local governments, which shall make roads, which shall make schools, but without what we call community development agreements. When companies think that for them, they are interested in using social corporate responsibility, which they can choose what to do, like you are seeing scholarships and OIMA, what, that does not really add a lot. But if they are clear social community development agreements, people can say, yes, you're taking away our water source. We must have an agreement with the company and the government. We are going to be replaced by this. But whatever now is happening, it is just verbal. It means these people will end up not doing anything when we approach the construction phase. and you will not even be allowed to go and monitor what is taking place there. So because of time, I beg to stop there, but it's a...
I mean, thank you so much, Kayinga. I could definitely feel your passion, feel your pain. Yeah, before I continue, I just wanted to say, in case you're wondering why I am off video, so I've just experienced load shedding, which is actually a norm, you know, in our in South Africa, you know, where lights yeah are being switched off. But we'll still continue. Yeah. And I mean, Kayinga mentioned really good points, especially around miscommunication and manipulation. You know, like villages falsely manipulated to sign these agreements, you know, not even knowing what they're getting themselves into. And also just highlighting, like, currently, like, we are in the 11th hour to really save our planet. You know, we are already seeing the effects of climate change. And now I'm wondering from the audience, like, what are like, because often like this becomes like a hard thing to believe, you know, that climate change is happening. And I'm wondering, like, if there are real case studies of like things that you're seeing already happening in your communities, you know, due to climate change. So now, if you can use the chat to share, or if you can even unmute yourself, you know, to share, like, what are you seeing the effects of climate change in your communities, or in your town, in your cities, in your countries, and so that we can really start to reason and really see if this is really what we need, or this is just gonna put us on an even more dark hole.
Hello?
Go ahead, Clay.
Yes. My name is Xoli Fuyani. I'm from Tanzania, and I'm working with environmental-based organization. Chipping in on what you just said, having experienced the climate change impacts in our communities, so as to assess if we really need projects like EACOP. Quoting the president of Tanzania, who was recently responding to claims of increased commodity price, he said that among other things that have rose up commodity price in Tanzania is the effect of climate change. He said in the past 2 to 3 years, our country experienced the severe droughts and severe weather events, change in weather that denied farmers everywhere in the country to produce as they used to. So, decrease the production of commodities, decrease the production in agriculture. It made basic products to be scarce, and that alone has caused or played a significant role in rising commodity price. So you can see commodity prices have risen up, and people cannot afford to buy. So they start complaining to the government that why aren't you regulating prices? We cannot afford this kind of prices for maize, for rice. That alone is telling. Yeah, yes. Do you hear me now?
I want to tell you you're muted. Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, if our communities cannot afford to buy very basic products, cannot afford to buy food, to buy cooking oil, because farmers could not produce owing to climate reasons. That alone tells us that we have to act responsibly, and we have to stand up to protest to fossil fuel projects like EACOP, which could make us more vulnerable to climate change. We are already incapable of adapting effectively because of our lacking enough financial resources and technical resources. So rising of commodity price is something that is felt by everyone. Everyone will feel it. So to my opinion, that alone can be a good example that climate change can have effect in agricultural production, and at the end, you want to be able to afford basic needs like food. Yes.
Thank you so much, Clay. I mean, I'm sure a lot of us on this call can relate. I see also on the chat, Akila wrote that in Cape Town, there has been recurrent drought and water shortages. And then recently in KZN, which is KwaZulu Natal, and the Eastern Cape, they have been experiencing torrential rain and flooding. And these natural disasters events are all linked to climate change. I mean, I'm sure like each and every day we are seeing really this increase, of natural disasters happening, but on a more frequent time. And I mean, if we just take the KZN example of the flooding, and because on the news, often you would see all the, the homes that are floating away and the destruction on the land. But often what you don't see is the impact that has on human beings. And I often say, because probably for a very long time, climate has always been framed as an ecological issue where it just affects the land. And we really then that with doing that done a lot of damage with really centering human beings. And probably that's why now we're struggling to really pinpoint and put forward that climate change does impact the human rights. Like if we heard from you, Clay, you were saying like people are struggling to buy basic food, that they need to survive. I mean, we've also heard from Kayinga saying like kids are not going to school, so and then and our constitution then says every human being has a right to this, has a right to education, we have a right to clean air, we have a right to food, and yet again, same government, propose projects like EACOP. So Claire, you are a lawyer, and I'm very interested to hear, from the perspective of law, is this lawful? This project?
Yes.
Is this within law? What they're doing and what they're proposing?
If we come back to the laws, you cannot. I mean, our laws are not that straight to tell you such kind of projects are unlawful. For instance, Tanzania has the Environmental Management Act. So that act was meant to regulate all things relating to the environment. So if a project has detrimental environmental impacts like EACOP, you come to realize that Tanzania's Environmental Management Act has only one section that addresses climate change, Section 75 of the Act. And the only thing that section provides is the Minister for Environment will prepare guidelines or strategies for climate change mitigation and adaptation. So we have a lacuna or a legal gap, or we don't have policy guidance on how to handle climate change impacts. Our laws are less environmental sensitive, particularly to climate issues. And again, when such kind of projects are being undertaken, our laws do not give communities a right to protest or a right to question. Our laws do not empower communities to act, to ask for transparency or to hold the government officials into account. I can give you a very simple example. When environmental impact assessment for EACOP was conducted in Tanzania, And the report was shared in the EACOP website. They have their website, EACOP website. So you could visit the EACOP website and find the PDF of the environmental impact assessment for the EACOP project. But that assessment report is written in a very, very technical language that common Tanzanians cannot understand. So you cannot say that this is transparency, or people can read the report and see the environmental impacts and the mitigation measures. Nothing, very technical, they cannot understand it. Even us at our office, we had to hire experts from Environmental Law Alliance to help us to understand the content of the report. So our laws are less sensitive. We have a law that has only one section on climate. Maybe our countries need separate laws on climate. Maybe we need a Climate Change Act that would address and will mention institutions that will be responsible in assessing or giving a yes or a no to the projects. Tanzania has the National Environmental Management Council, NEMKI, which is mandated to manage the environment in the country. But NEMKI is very silent on the environmental impacts of EACOP to Tanzanians. They won't tell you a thing. So we have laws that do not capacitate the people or the institutions to take action to protect the environment against climate change impacts. Yes.
Thank you, Clay. I mean, that's very fascinating. Yeah, especially the technical language. I mean, it's something, again, that we are seeing. I mean, not just with EACOP, but even like with policies, you know, we always argue that grassroots movements should engage, you know, should be given seats at this table. But then often when they are given the seats, the language is not accessible. And it's also very fascinating about what you propose, because my next question was like, how do we change that? You know, if the law doesn't allow communities to engage and to question. And I heard you like answering that by saying that we need separate law acts. And now with that, I'm also, the question is, how would that work? So wouldn't that then perpetuate this idea that government is above people? Because then if we have a law, shouldn't that law encompasses like everything? Shouldn't that law be inclusive, not just to the government or those that are well educated, but also to the local, like just, yeah, a local, like a person in the village. So with your proposal with separate law, how do you foresee that happening without then creating this friction of, you know, people against government?
Okay, thank you. If I can recall section 179 of our Environmental Management Act in Tanzania provide us whichever process, legislative process, governance process of making a new law that touches the environment, whichever law it may be, the environmental issues are so cross-cutting. So when an aspect of law would touch the environment, our laws provide us the people should be engaged from the grassroots, and Environmental Management Council or authorities should provide a room for people to send their opinion, whether orally or in written, and everyone should have that right. But the thing is, we normally send our opinions, we share our opinions in written way, orally. The government will just collect the opinions. Again, they will come up with a bill that has not incorporated your opinion without giving reasons as to why they did not incorporate your opinions. So maybe we need to make sure that we keep on advocating for inclusion, that let everyone be heard. And again, we should keep advocating on good governance. Among features of good governance is responsiveness. When we are giving our opinions on climate laws, when these laws are made, then our opinion should be heard. And in case the government does not take our opinion into account, they should give us the reasons why our opinions are not into account. So I think if we keep on pushing, we keep on pushing, maybe we may get somewhere good. We should keep doing this job tirelessly. That's all I can say.
Thank you, Clay. I mean, yes, keep on pushing, keep on holding the government accountable. And I just saw on the chat, Achaford wrote something, and I'm wondering, Achaford, if you want to say that out, or you want me to read it out, because I think it's very important what you wrote. I mean, not to put you on the spot, but
Can I continue?
yes, go ahead, Clay. You can.
Yes, I had highlighted a number of issues when my fellows were speaking right here. I would like to share them with you. Particularly on compensation. Yes, I agree with Baraka that compensation was done in 2019 and it has not been effected to date. Our laws, particularly land laws, when issues pertaining land acquisition for projects like EACOP are being conducted, our land laws have a very specific provision which provide us that once the assessment has been done, the people should be compensated in any time not exceeding 6 months. If the time lapse, if the time goes beyond 6 months, then the delay invalidates the assessment. So you may find out that our people will be paid on the assessment of 2019, but as to the provisions of our own laws, whichever compensation that has delayed for more than 6 months, then the prior assessment is invalid. That is a provision in our own laws. So it is a duty for frontline defenders like my organization, which is always undertaking public interest litigation, to take such matters to court. So we will be active to protect the community's right, particularly the right to land. So again, I would like to share, excuse me, on resource nationalism. Big projects like EACOP, which attracts foreign direct investment, the government says, in case any person protests or questions anything on such big projects, on such projects, he's branded an enemy of the state. And the government would come up saying we are in a very intense economic war, that we want to create employment for our people, we want to produce energy, we want to secure investment. We cannot go along with some other people pushing us back. So the way our government translates or defines resource nationalism is to let them undertake these projects unquestionably. What they say is we are fighting for the economy. So if a person is holding us back, that person is an enemy of the state. So it is a really important issue to human rights defenders to note that when we demand accountability, we are being branded as enemies of the state, enemies of the economy, as if we don't wish well for our countries. It is the angle that those who doesn't want to be held into account always try to hide. And it happened in EACOP. I know frontliners who were advocating for Stop EACOP. They could learn differences in their offices, surveillance, seeing cars, people you have never seen, wandering around your office just to threat you to continue on your Stop EACOP campaigns. So how we define resource nationalism is also an issue I would like to highlight. And again, on protecting the nature, recently my organization was sensitive to the pollution on River Mara. River Mara is in Tanzania. It borders Tanzania and Kenya. and it is the main tributary of Lake Victoria. There was some cases of water pollution in River Mara, but we handled the problem in a very poor way. So environmentalists are very concerned that a pipeline like EACOP, which passes through Lake Victoria Basin for more than 500 kilometers, in case of oil spill or oil leakage, what will be the case for Lake Victoria? We might end up having another case of Niger Delta in our Lake Victoria Basin. And again, Lake Victoria Basin is being used by a large community. More than 50 million individuals depend on Lake Victoria Basin. It extends to Tanzania, Kenya, Burundi. So our capacity in handling such cases is very insignificant. We are not capable enough to control oil spillage or oil leakage. We had a case in Tanzania and we saw a mess. Everything was handled poorly. So we are concerned on how good will they be able to manage such cases unless they are putting our very own Lake Victoria at a very high risk, and aquatic resources can be adversely affected. I remember in a number of years back in Tanga, Tanga is the coastal region of Tanzania. We had a species of fishes known as coelacanth. Coelacanth were declared extinct for so many years. Later on, they were found at Chongoleani in Tanga. So Chongoleani is the very same point that EACOP will pass and undertake their activities. So it is a threat that extends to extinction of very, very important species. Yeah, I thought it would be important to highlight those key issues. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Clay. I mean, that, yeah, you know, when you said 15 million people would be impacted. I mean, 15 million people depend on Lake Victoria, and just the thought of that.
40 million.
40 million people depending on Lake
Victoria.
Victoria. And that's where the pipeline will cut through. Yeah. And I'm hearing a lot of people saying, yeah, really like agreeing with you. And Padre Pio wrote on the chat, like what Clay is talking about is true here in Uganda. And also before, I wanted to read what Achiford wrote. He said, I can feel for the affected communities in both Uganda and Tanzania. It's like double tragedy for them if the project is removing them from their land, separating them from their culture and resources. Resources of their common livelihood. Passes from generation to generation. People adapt more when they are in the environment they're used to than the new land where they do not have attachments. On the other hand, what support systems are being put in place to ensure long-term sustainability in the new lands? What legal guarantees are being put in place in terms of land ownership when it comes to new land they are being relocated to? So Clay, do you have any insights on that? I mean, well, first of all, another question is that, has the contract been signed? Is this development happening or is it still on the pipeline? Because from Monday,
okay,
we heard that the contract has been signed. This is going to happen.
Okay, I would like to respond to that question. There have been so many contracts regarding EACOP. Previously, what they were signing were the hosting government agreements. So what I can say is execution of the EACOP project is does not solely depend on one contract. There are so many contracts that have been signed, so many agreements, and maybe they are on final stages of completing it. Again, on the reallocation and compensation, we have different laws. Uganda do have their laws. Tanzania have their laws. We have one issue that is very important to address. If you read our extractive laws, mining laws, petroleum laws, what they provide is, in case a given part of land has to be acquired for undertaking of mining activities or petroleum activities, then a person who was the owner of that part of land has to be reallocated and compensated timely, adequately, fairly, promptly. But when you come to read the land laws, our land laws, they only provide on compensation. So you find out you have a conflict of laws. The petroleum laws will tell you you have to compensate and reallocate this person. But the land laws will tell you you have to only compensate. So once you have a conflict of laws, which law would prevail? The Land Act would prevail because there is a provision in the land laws which provide us in case land laws conflict with another laws on matters pertaining to land, then the land laws would prevail. So the land law would prevail. Automatically, a provision in the petroleum law which speaks about reallocation dies a natural death. Those people will only be compensated without being reallocated. And you can imagine the assessment was made in 2019. This is 2022, nearly 4 years now, no compensation has been made. Those people were stopped to, once the assessment is done, you are not allowed to develop the area. You're not allowed to make any further development on your land. So our people have been denied a right to develop their land for the past 3 to 4 years. They could not build houses or make whatever kind of progress. So our people are already poor, and when you deny them to develop their land, you're making them poorer and poorest. Such kind of projects are inhumane and should be protested by everyone. So we have a conflict of laws that people cannot be reallocated because the land laws do not say anything on reallocation, but only compensation. It is a conflict of laws within our very own laws, and our government haven't seen a reason to come up with amendment to harmonize these conflicting provisions of the laws. Again, our people who have been denied their right to develop their areas are poor, who are being made poorer. Yes.
Thank you so much, Clay. I'm wondering now to everybody listening, like, what are you hearing? You know, what are you feeling? What are your thoughts, you know, around this topic? You are welcome to unmute yourself or use the chat. Yeah, so that we can move together, you know. Oh, also something that we forgot to mention is that please feel free to use your own language as long as we can have translation. And today we are so privileged to have Noah who can translate French for us. So if French is your language and you feel comfortable sharing in French, please feel free to do so. We will then we will have translation for that. Yeah. So what are you hearing? What are you feeling? What are your thoughts, you know, on EACOP?
No one is showing up.
No one.
Then let me continue.
Just wait, Clay. We have a hand from Padrapio. Please unmute yourself.
Yes, are you hearing me? Are you hearing me properly?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, what I can say about there's some issue that Clay has talked about, the issue of whenever people come out and try to contest against the projects like the EACOP, people are labeled enemies of the state. I mean, I know Clay has been talking about the situation in Tanzania, but even here in Uganda, that's how it is. I mean, it becomes so hard. You start getting followed by people you don't know. You know, sometimes officers get broken into. So it really becomes hard for people who would have wanted to maybe try to maybe sensitize the people about the dangers of these projects. So that's the challenge we are facing this side. I mean, it's too hard when you're labeled an enemy of the state. The whatever the law enforcement is in our countries is, I think they are lacking. For them, they just follow the orders as they hear them. Like, and of course you can't blame them, but that's the challenge we are facing. It's a very, very big challenge, and any would be for us who are trying to maybe resist it, we are doing it, but we can't like do it with the full might that would have done it. Because of that, I mean, you find roadblocks everywhere. You go to offices, some people maybe they avoid you, the authorities avoid you, people you would have wanted to talk to, they start avoiding you, stuff like that. So it's so bad this side, but we're trying our best, but it's so hard, as Claire has tried to mention.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's not easy, being labeled as an enemy of the state. And I know in South Africa also we have the same issue where we've seen activists being killed actually for speaking up and holding government accountable. And I'm also, I mean, I know that we are talking about EACOP, but in South Africa also, I know just for us, our government is also proposing like new coal-powered electricity, and there is a litigation around that. And so I mean, we are seeing really like how government, think that they are in power, especially when there are profits, because if you're looking at EACOP and you're looking at this coal-powered electricity being proposed, they are set to generate a lot of money. And my question, to you, Claire, is like, where will that money go? Will the people in those communities reap from those profits, or will it all go to Total Energy, all the investors?
Sorry, would you repeat your question? Which money?
I mean, if the EACOP is implemented, and I mean, because it's been sold as a profit, project that will generate income for the communities, for the country.
Yes.
And I am wondering,
Yes.
do you think it's realistic? Do you think that money will go to those communities, or do you think it will just stay, with the main shareholders in the project, like Total Energy and Canon?
Okay. Responding to your question, EACOP as a project has registered a company. So a company is known as EACOP, is South African Oil Pipeline Company. That company is registered to operate in both Tanzania and Uganda. So what happens is, for the profit generated from the project, there would be profit. That profit is taxed. So Tanzania would collect their 30% corporate tax, and that amount goes directly to the consolidated fund of the state. So it is distributed evenly to all other parts of the country for development as a source of finance to the government. It doesn't go directly to the communities that are affected in the area where the pipeline passes. But again, Section 229 of the Petroleum Act of Tanzania provides on corporate social responsibility. The EACOP project will passes through a number of districts. So the local government authorities in those districts have a duty to sit down with EACOP and ask EACOP the amount they allocate for corporate social responsibility. So that amount, whichever it will be, they will develop a plan, a joint plan. For instance, in Tanga, given district in Tanga where the pipeline passes, will collect 0.6% of the revenue from EACOP as a service levy. That would go directly to that district, but it is 0.6. Again, on corporate social responsibility, they would have to sit and develop a very well joint plan between the EACOP and the local government. So EACOP will allocate a fund to implement that plan. If the plan was to build schools or hospitals or buying ambulance, it will be the duty for both EACOP and the local government to make sure that that fund which was allocated goes directly to fund those development projects. So the only kind of direct benefit to the communities alongside the pipeline would benefit is on corporate social responsibility. Apart from that, the government would earn money and go to invest somewhere else. So it is a project that would generate income for the country, but the true pains is felt at the local level where the pipeline passes. Yes.
Thank you so much, Clay. Yeah. Yeah, government will profit and communities will suffer. I see in the chat that Akila wrote, sometimes what is law does not always equal justice. At grassroots level, it is especially difficult to go up against big companies. And then, excuse that. Yeah, so it's very difficult to go against big companies, and often the government who has vested extra active projects like EACOP, and then also the proposed oil and gas drilling on the Okavango Delta. We are facing similar issues with Tendele coal, mines in SA. That being said, we should never give up on the fight for social and environmental justice and holding companies and government accountable. I also hear Sabonga saying, like, what is happening in our fellow African countries is quite disturbing. We are also currently facing a similar issue here in South Africa, but in our side is coal mines and Shell wanting to exploit our ocean and oil. And Achiford said, given the dilemma of being labeled enemies of the state and the severity of the damage likely to emanate from the project, what then can be done? Isn't it time to mobilize even more external voices to support internal voices making the topic of discussion across Africa? Can that find a way to COP27 discussion? Right on, Achiford, because that was going to be my next question of, like, I mean, yes, this is an issue that's going to affect Uganda and Tanzania, but what can we as fellow Africans do moving forward? Like, from today, what can we do? And I mean, that's why we are having these dialogues, you know, to really raise awareness so that a lot of young activists are aware of this issue. So from Clay, I see our fellow guests have left us. I'm going to keep referring to you. What can we do? What can we do? You know, like me as a South African, what can I do?
What can we do is to campaign for EACOP. I can tell you on my 5 years of experience in natural resources and environmental-based projects, I haven't seen a project that protesters are united like the Stop EACOP campaign. And we can see with our campaign, with our voices, we're now seeing banks pulling out of EACOP. Banks are withdrawing every day. Insurers are withdrawing every day. So this EACOP project is now missing financiers from all over the world. So however minimal our voices are, they are impactful. They're impactful. So what I would suggest is that we broaden our advocacy campaigns as we speak today online. tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, let us integrate Stop EACOP in our projects, in our other interventions. Let us keep sharing it online or in whatever communication means. Let us make this a collective voice. Our voices are so meaningful. I saw a video last time, a young lady talking to Macron of France, that president, telling him to stop EACOP. So we are raising our voices in Africa. Our colleagues elsewhere keep raising their voices, and I can tell you that our voices are a big mess to them, and this project is really stacking somewhere because of our voices. So we keep on advocacy. That's what we can do. We don't have the resources. We don't have the guns. We don't want a physical confrontation, but what we do is to advocate. Let us keep telling our people that they have a right to live in a very healthy and clean environment, and that right is a universal, it is a basic, it is a fundamental, it is a human right that is adversely affected by undertaking of such fossil fuel projects. So our voices are impactful. Companies are pulling out, financiers are pulling out, insurers are pulling out, advisors are pulling out. We should keep on advocating for Stop EACOP campaign. That's what I would say. Keep your voice high.
Thank you so much, Clay. Yes, definitely. Yes to raising our voices, and yeah, just knowing that our voices are impactful, and this it doesn't matter where you are. I mean, now we have a luxury of social media. You know, we have Twitter, we have Instagram, and if we can start with those, you know, if you are not in Uganda or on the countries that will be impacted, we can write stories, we can write open letters, we can campaign online and keep using these hashtags of like Stop EACOP, but also like we can direct some of that campaigning and advocacy to the banks, you know, that will be financing this project. Yes, Clay?
Yes, and just to give an example, when I was sharing my insights with you right here, I was also tweeting. So the very same thing I was saying here, I tweeted it on Twitter, and I've tagged you and 9 other climate advocates on Twitter. So I keep sharing it, and after I shared it on Twitter, I took a screenshot and shared it on my WhatsApp, sending it to friends who are interested or not interested with the environmental issues. I keep sending. And I remember some years back, our colleagues in Kenya filed a case before the court of law in Kenya, before the Environmental Tribunal of Kenya, because Kenya was about to undertake a coal is also a hydrocarbon coal project that would generate up to 400 megawatts of electricity. But that generation of that electricity would have resulted into production of metric tons of carbons. So the court in Kenya was boldly enough to order an injunction for the government to stop with that project that would pollute the air and lead to climate disasters. So we can see Kenya is just a neighboring country, and our colleagues, our comrades were bold enough to approach the court for an injunction. Maybe we have to learn from that example, and us in Tanzania and our colleagues in Uganda should keep approaching the court to seek for an injunction on this project. We should approach the court and ask the court to order our government to stop this EACOP project. It can be effective too. We never know.
Yeah, definitely. I like that. It all takes simple things, you know, like by sending out that Twitter hashtagging, and also like as a fellow South African, we've seen, you know, with Shell and the fracking, and how when people united and really used their voices and came together and mobilized, how that was so impactful that it stopped Shell, you know, from exploiting our oceans. So it is possible. I know that this might look like a mammoth task, you know, of like, because there are all these big companies in this government, but united also we are very powerful. And as Clay has said, that we need to use our voices and I mean, now activism is becoming very mainstream. Also, we're seeing a lot of youth, you know, holding government accountable, and so I definitely have hope that this EACOP is not going to continue. We will stop it, especially we are united, and we start small and we continue campaigning. So thank you so much, Clay. Thank you so much for your valuable information and your insights. I've definitely learned a lot, you know, and I'm sure I've seen on the chat also, people say that they've learned a lot from today's dialogue. And I think we're gonna close it for today. And so to let's continue this conversation, you know, let's not just leave it all here. Let's go to our social media and continue it. But every month, you know, us as African Climate Alliance, we hold these spaces exploring different topics, you know, so that we can start to raise awareness, you know, but also one of the big, you know, intention for us is what Clay spoke about with the thing around language, because often when we engage in these spaces, the language is not accessible because it's very technical. So that's why as African Climate Alliance, we run those back to basics workshop where we deconstruct and take things to the basics so that we can then understand. And then because when we understand, then we are able to engage. Thank you so much. And Calvin, yes, definitely. For South Africans only, though, we will be reaching out to you to reimburse your data. We're still figuring out how to do that. In other countries, we haven't quite yet. So I'm going to read also before we close. Lindo Kuhle wrote that I am in South Africa. I work in a college and I am a student support department. I shall mobilize students to rally behind this, and we can write to the Minister of Foreign Affairs. I lost that. A Minister of Foreign Affairs in solidarity. If possible, we shall also write to the representative of South Africa in Pan-African Parliament to influence the views of PAP. Definitely, Linda Goshle, definitely. I mean, those are the small steps we can take. As Clay said, the more we can campaign, the more we can use our voices, we have the power to stop EACOP. Yeah. So thank you all so much. Thank you. And we'll see you next time. You know, please do. I mean, if you are not following us on social media, we are on Instagram, we are on Twitter, and also follow Clay, follow Baraka, follow because we all need this information. We all need to support each other to really hold government accountable. Yes, Franklin also said, I came in late. I listened to Clay. I definitely agree with what he said. Won't miss next time. Thank you so much, Franklin. Yeah, thank you for joining.